Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, US launches fresh strike at Houthi radar site in Yemen after President Joe Biden vows to protect shipping in the Red Sea. Polling underway in Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections, ruling Democratic Progressive Party is seeking third term in office with its candidate, current Vice President Lai Ching-te. Fierce snow lashes swathes of Midwest as the U.S. braces for blizzard conditions. Cold wave freezes parts of North India as well. The U.S. military has carried out an additional strike against the Houthis in Yemen after President Joe Biden's administration vowed to protect shipping in the Red Sea. According to U.S. officials, the strike targeted a radar site in Yemen. Radar infrastructure has been a key target in the U.S. military effort to halt Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. The latest strike came a day after U.S. and British forces launched a wave of attacks on nearly 30 locations in the country to degrade the Houthis' ability to strike Red Sea shipping. U.S. President Joe Biden on Friday called Yemen's Houthi forces a terrorist group and warned that the U.S. would respond if the Yemeni rebels continued outrageous behavior in attacking the Red Sea shipping zone.
We will make sure that we respond to the Houthis if they continue this outrageous behavior. It's irrelevant whether they're designated. We've put together a group of nations that are going to say that if they continue to act and behave as they do, we'll respond.
Meanwhile, the United States and Britain on Friday defended to the UN Security Council the legality of strikes they launched against Houthis for attacking Red Sea. The US and UK envoy said that the military strikes carried out against the Houthis in retaliation for the Yemeni group's attacks on ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. While Russia called the US and British operation disproportionate and illegal, other countries expressed concerns that the strikes against 28 locations would stoke regional tensions.
The aim of these strikes was to disrupt and degrade the Houthis' ability to continue their reckless attacks against vessels and commercial shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. These strikes were necessary and they were proportionate. Colleagues, the United States does not desire more conflict in a region already plagued by so much of it. Our aim is simple: to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea while upholding the fundamental principles of freedom of navigation.
The attacks by Houthis on vessels in the Red Sea must stop. We have made this clear to the Houthis, and we call on them to de-escalate. The United Kingdom is committed to continue working with the international community and this Council to combat this international threat. We have published a summary of our legal position on last night's strikes and have reported to the Council in writing in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged countries to avoid an escalation in the situation in the Red Sea. His spokesman said on Friday after Washington and London launched strikes on Yemen's Houthi rebels.
We are just extremely worried about the risks and the greater risks of escalation of this. The Secretary General further calls on all parties involved not to escalate even more the situation in the interest of peace and stability in the Red Sea and the wider region. Furthermore, the Secretary General stresses the need to avoid acts that could further worsen the situation in Yemen itself. He calls for every effort to be made to ensure that Yemen pursues a path of peace and that the work undertaken thus far to end the conflict in Yemen should not be lost.
Polling is underway in Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen cast her vote shortly after tightly contested presidential and parliamentary polls opened on Saturday. Tsai is constitutionally barred from standing again After 2 terms in office, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, which champions Taiwan's separate identity and rejects China's territorial claims, is seeking a 3rd term in office with its candidate, current Vice President Lai Ching-te. Taiwan has been a democratic success story since holding its first direct presidential election in 1996, the culmination of decades of struggle against authoritarian rule and martial law. Taiwan's incumbent vice president and presidential candidate of the ruling DPP, Lai Ching-te, cast his vote. Talking to media, Lai said that he's committed to preserving peace across the Taiwan Strait and to keep boosting the island's defenses. He encouraged people to come out in large numbers to cast their ballots. Lai is facing 2 opponents for the presidency, Hu Yui of Taiwan's largest opposition party of Kuomintang, and former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je of the small Taiwan People's Party, founded in 2019. Former Taipei Mayor and presidential candidate of Taiwan People's Party, Ko Wen-je, also cast his vote. Ko has won a passionate support base, especially among the young voters, for focusing on bread and butter issues such as the high cost of housing. He also wants to re-engage China, but insists that cannot come at the expense of protecting Taiwan's democracy and way of life. As polling is underway in Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and other prominent people cast their votes in the early hours of Saturday. DD India correspondent Patrick Falk joins us from Taiwan for more details on the polls and the international importance.
This election is being very closely watched internationally. It is a critical vote, and critical to the US in particular, because Taiwan plays a key role in its Indo-Pacific strategy. Essentially, in the event that China were to annex Taiwan, then the US, or it's thought that the US would no longer be able to give its allies in the region the security it's been able to do for decades as it has done. The vote is expected to be a tight race. There was a lot of last-minute campaigning and rallying last night. Hundreds of thousands of people turned out for that, so one would expect that the voter turnout today is going to be significant. It's difficult to say just how tight this race is going to be, though, because Taiwan doesn't allow opinion polls in the final days leading up to the election. But we do know that the opposition parties have been gaining ground on the front runner, William Lai, who is despised by Beijing. Beijing sees the Democratic Progressive Party as separatists, and it has repeatedly warned against Taiwan voting him in. It said that there would be severe danger if William Lai were to take over from the incumbent, Tsai Ing-wen. So, you know, this is, as I say, very closely watched. The outcome of this vote is going to have critical implications for this future relation between Beijing and Taipei.
The United States and Japan reaffirmed their partnership built on shared values during a meeting at the State Department on Friday. At the meeting, with Japan's Foreign Minister, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the U.S.-Japan alliance was a cornerstone of peace, security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. Last month, Japan said that it would prepare to ship Patriot air defense missiles to the United States after revising its arms export guidelines. Japanese minister also pledged millions of dollars to NATO to help Ukraine in her unannounced visit to Ukraine last week.
Our alliance, the alliance between Japan and the United States, is truly the cornerstone of peace, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. But I think what we've seen in recent years, but especially over the last couple of years, is an alliance that has reached new heights, where we are working together not only on a bilateral basis, not only on a regional basis, but genuinely on a global basis. And this partnership with the United States is absolutely critical and deeply valued.
Alaska Airlines said that it will extend its cancellation of Boeing 737 MAX 9 flights through Tuesday, January 16th. The extension is for the planes that have been grounded since last week after an aircraft's cabin panel blew out mid-air. Alaska has been cancelling about 20% of daily flights since Saturday after the grounding of its 65 MAX 9 planes. Texas erected new barriers along the part of the state's border with Mexico this week, blocking border patrol access, a court filing said on Friday. The move comes as conflict over migration escalates between the state's Republican Governor Greg Abbott and Democratic U.S. President Joe Biden. As record number of migrants illegally crossed the border since last few years, Texas seeks to implement its own border controls. Let's get to updates from Ecuador now. The police and army of the South American nation have stepped up security operations nationwide following a dramatic increase in violence this week. Over 20 people have been arrested by the armed forces in several raids so far. The Noboa administration has meanwhile asked lawmakers to weigh an increase in value-added tax to finance efforts to combat crime gangs. Ecuadorian president visited on Friday afternoon the television station TC in Guayaquil, which was stormed on Tuesday by an armed group during a live broadcast. Noboa spoke to the workers and reported victims of the violent attack and toured the studios where the armed men broke in. A dramatic spike in violence this week, including the on-air storming of a television station, the hostage-taking of 178 prison staff by inmates, and the kidnapping of police officers, appears to be a response by gangs to President Noboa's plans to tackle a dire security situation. Noboa, who took office in November, has declared a state of emergency and named 22 gangs as terrorist organizations. Ukraine and the United Kingdom signed a security agreement in Kyiv on Friday. It followed on from an agreement by the G7 to provide Ukraine with bilateral security assurance. The agreement formalizes a range of support, including intelligence sharing, cybersecurity, medical and military training. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine described it as an unprecedented security agreement.
The United Kingdom is announcing today our single biggest package of defence aid to Ukraine since the war began, worth £2.5 billion. This will include more air defence equipment, more anti-tank weapons, more long-range missiles, thousands of rounds more ammunition and artillery shells, training for thousands more Ukrainian servicemen and women, and £200 million to build thousands more drones.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak addressed the Ukrainian parliament during his visit to Kyiv on Friday. To enthusiastic applause, Sunak dubbed the parliament as the bravest in the world.
We must prepare for this to be a long war. But I believe that there is hope for us in the echoes of Britain's own history. If 1940 was our finest hour, and Ukraine's was 2 years ago as you resisted the Russian invasion, then perhaps today is more like 1942. In the end, history tells us that democracies who endure will always prevail.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak visited a military Feofania hospital in Kyiv on Friday and greeted the wounded soldiers. Zelensky awarded soldiers with medals, thanking them for their service to the country. The Ukrainian leader also met on Friday with the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine's economic recovery, Penny Pritzker, and her team. U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, would be willing to testify in a public hearing if Republicans in the House of Representatives issued a new subpoena, his lawyer said on Friday. The offer comes 2 days after the panels moved ahead with historic efforts to hold Hunter Biden in contempt. Hunter Biden is involved in several legal disputes aside from the congressional probes. On Thursday, he pleaded not guilty in a California federal court on tax charges. The International Monetary Fund approved a $100 million loan to Gambia on Friday. The IMF said that the loan aims to strengthen the West African country's economic recovery and help it address inflation and foreign exchange pressures. The new 3-year loan program replaces a recently completed $47 million IMF loan program granted to Gambia in March 2020. Carpenters finished working on medieval choir of the Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral on Friday. They affixed a bunch of flowers to the framework of the building's choir to celebrate finishing work on it. The traditional carpenter celebration involved workers gathering and waving axes forged using 12th century models. 1,000 oaks have been selected to rebuild the spire and the frame of the cathedral's transept, which caught fire in 2019. Around 500 people are working to reconstruct the cathedral every day. Notre Dame is set to reopen for religious services and public in December this year. You're watching DD India Live. Up next, we're heading for a short break. But after the break, we tell you the U.S. state of Iowa braves blizzard conditions ahead of Monday's caucus as the state's traditional primary season kicks off. We get you ahead the softer side of our valiant security personnel. BSF personnel celebrated the Festival of Lohri along with locals in India's Jammu and Kashmir. Spinners Kuldeep Yadav and Akshar Patel called up for the first two tests against England.
We are taking a close look at a seminal rivalry in West Asia or the Middle East, the undeclared war between Iran and Israel. These two major powers, both of which have strategic partnerships with India, but have been at loggerheads, and the tensions that flare up between these two countries can set the whole region in flames.
Israel became a nuclear power, even though undeclared. But Iran has been trying to, and many people say that it has already acquired sufficient expertise. Expertise it has. But whether it has the weapon systems or not, one does not know. So they tried to build up their arsenal, both of missiles as well as for the nuclear capable platforms, which is what gives a fear to Israel as well. Israel does not want Iran to become nuclear.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. Let's continue getting you more updates, underlining the significance of the Trade Policy Forum in forging robust bilateral trade ties and in enhancing the overall economic relationship. The 14th ministerial level meeting of India-United States Trade Policy Forum was held in New Delhi on Friday. Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal and US Trade Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai co-chaired the meeting. Both the leaders welcomed the strong momentum in India-US bilateral trade in goods and services, which continue to rise and is likely to surpass, likely surpass the $200 billion mark in the calendar year 2023, despite a challenging global trade environment. They acknowledged that considering the size of their economies, significant potential remains unrealized and expressed their mutual desire to further enhance engagement with the goal of continuing to increase and diversify bilateral trade. In this regard, the ministers underlined the significance of the TPF in forging a robust economic relationship. The United States welcomed India's decision to reduce the timeline for reaching 20% ethanol blending with petrol from 2030 to 2025 and for the launch of the Global Biofuels Alliance as well as the India-US Biofuels Task Force. India's rising economy has now become a talk of the town, and that is being done round the clock. A recent report released by Goldman Sachs estimates that affluent Indians may number 100 million in the next 4 years. According to this report, there are only 14 countries in the world with 100 million plus population. India, standing with the second largest population in the world, is already responsible for a consumer and wealth creation paradigm shift. A sharper increase in demand for premium products across industries such as footwear, fashion, passenger vehicles and two-wheelers has led to better performance by companies focused on top income consumption. Reportedly, sectors that are hitting the jackpot are jewelry, travel, premium retail and pricey healthcare. The report defines affluence as income of over $10,000 per annum. Goldman analysts say that this class numbers 60 million currently, but will grow by a huge 67% to 100 million by 2027. India's Defence Minister will be has in fact approved a proposal to launch a group term insurance, but we'll get you more on that. Meanwhile, let's get you other important updates. India's Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities has signed an MOU with Enable India for developing a course on employability skills for persons with disabilities. Now, the 70-hour interactive and accessible course was launched at the International Purple Fest 2024. This course will be implemented at all skill training centers across India and will also help persons with disabilities get gainful employment.
We toyed with the idea of employability skills of 30 hours, 60 hours, basically 10% of the time, कि वो employability skills होना चाहिए, which is confidence building, which is basic English skills, basic digital skills, basic financial literacy skills. So that is combination is called employability skills. So when I came here, one was converting that book into an accessible book for persons with challenges, and then also changing the whole narrative. One more good news is that the skills regulator NCVET, they will be launching the draft guidelines for basically skill courses for persons with disabilities.
And now we get to preparations for the grand event in Ayodhya. A civil engineer from India's Maharashtra has made an 11-feet replica of Ayodhya's Ram temple at his residence. The engineer started the construction work before Diwali last year, and he studied various designs on the internet to make an exact replica of the under-construction Lord Ram temple in Ayodhya. He thought of doing something for the auspicious occasion and decided to build a model of the temple in his house. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called upon people across the country to light Sri Ram Jyoti, or a lamp, in celebration of the consecration of Lord Ram Temple on 22nd January. Amidst this, the lamp made in Barabanki of Indian state of Uttar Pradesh is gaining widespread popularity, spreading its unique charm not only across the nation but also internationally. It has also become a means of economic empowerment for women associated with the self-help groups. So far, women connected to about 150 families in the district have created millions of lamps, sending them to various regions and cities, generating substantial income. A farmer from the Indian state of Gujarat has meticulously created an 1100 kg lamp for placement in the Ram temple. Now, this lamp, standing at 9.25 feet in height and 8 feet in width, has the capacity for 851 kilograms of ghee. The lamp is made from 5 metals: gold, silver, copper, zinc and iron. The lamp has been dispatched for Lord Ram Temple in Ayodhya for the consecration ceremony on 22nd January. Amid the ongoing events and celebrations across the globe ahead of the consecration ceremony at the Ram Temple, giant billboards of Lord Ram and the majestic temple have gone up in more than 10 states of the US. The Vishwa Hindu Parishad US chapter, in association with Hindus from across the US, have put up more than 40 billboards in 10 states, displaying the message of consecration ceremony on January 22nd in the Indian city of Ayodhya. Mauritius cabinet has decided to grant a special leave of 2 hours on Monday, the 22nd of January, to the public officers of Hindu faith for inauguration of Lord Ram Temple in the Indian city of Ayodhya. Now, according to a statement released by the Mauritius government, the inauguration of the Ram Temple is a landmark event as it symbolizes the return of Lord Ram in Ayodhya. The announcement was made in Hindi on Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation. Let's listen in.
22 जनवरी को दोपहर बाद 2 बजे से 2 घंटे की छुट्टी दी जाएगी। वन स्पेशल 2 आवर लीव, ताकि लोग अयोध्या में राम मंदिर के प्राण प्रतिष्ठा समारोह में भाग ले सके। प्रधानमंत्री प्रवीण कुमार जगन्नाथ की अध्यक्षता में लगी कैबिनेट की बैठक में ये फैसला लिया गया। इस पर सिविल सर्विस मंत्री अंजीव रामधनी को सुनते हैं।
हमने के भारत देश में एगो महा उत्सव बा, जहाँ श्री राम मंदिर के उद्घाटन अयोध्या राम जन्मभूमि में होगा। लैंजी बेंदेजोंगे प्रधानमंत्री श्री प्रवीण कुमार जगन्नाथ जी और हमारी सरकार जो हिंदू भाई बहन जो गवर्नमेंट में काम करलन सा, उन लोगों के वन ऑफ स्पेशल लीव 2 घंटा 2 बजे से मिलेगा पूजा करे के खातिर। जय श्री राम।
Up next, we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. An Indigo flight traveling from Indian state of Mumbai to Guwahati experienced an unexpected change in its route due to the dense fog. The flight was diverted to Dhaka, Bangladesh. Later, the flight returned back to the destination with an alternate set of crew. India's security personnel of Border Security Force celebrated the festival of Lohri along with local people in India's Jammu and Kashmir on the India-Pakistan international border. Lohri is a popular Indian festival that celebrates the beginning of the harvest season for winter crops. It is celebrated on January 13th or 14th every year. It is a joyous occasion marked by bonfire, music, dancing and sweets. People dress up in colorful clothes and gather around bonfires to sing songs. Let's get to weather update from across the globe now. Cold wave conditions along with fog continue to grip North India. We'll tell you about the world later. But talking of North India, the minimum temperature in Delhi dropped to 3.6 degrees Celsius. This is the lowest so far this winter on Saturday. The Indian Meteorological Department said that cold wave to severe cold wave conditions are likely to prevail over North India during the next 2 days. Also, dense to very dense fog conditions prevailed at night and early morning hours across North India, bringing down visibility and affecting movement. The flight operations were also hampered on Saturday after visibility dropped to 0 meters due to formation of very dense fog. The authorities issued an advisory urging passengers to contact their respective airlines for updated flight information before heading towards the airport. Meanwhile, Gurez sector in Bandipora district of Jammu and Kashmir received light snowfall overnight, even as minimum temperatures rose a few notches in several places, the officials said. In the United States, winter storm has unleashed bone-chilling winds and heavy snowfall across large parts of the U.S., disrupting travel and leaving thousands without power. The storms will be followed by a bitter cold Arctic chill into the weekend, with temperature dipping nearly -50 to -45 Fahrenheit in some areas. Governors of several states declared states of emergency ahead of predicted snow and bone-chilling temperatures. In St. Louis, the National Weather Service Bureau warned of rare and life-threatening cold. The U.S. state of Iowa is bracing for blizzard conditions as heavy wind and snow blasted across the areas on Friday. With a blizzard warning covering most of the state, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis and former President Donald Trump all shuffled their schedules ahead of Monday's presidential vote. All right, let's get to sports updates. In cricket, spinners Kuldeep Yadav and Akshar Patel have been included in the Indian team, while wicketkeeper Dhruv Jurel earned his maiden call-up for the first 2 tests against England. 22-year-old Jurel joins incumbent KL Rahul and KS Bharat as the third keeper in the squad. The 5-match series against England will begin in Hyderabad on January 25th and will be part of the World Test Championship. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.